Qantas isn't just any airline. It's the airline Australia gave to the world. And it all started with a little biplane, the Avro 504K, in the middle of Western Queensland more than 100 years ago. So, why build a whole museum to the founders of an airline? Well, if you live in the city, you might think it's just a way to get from A to B. But out here, Qantas was a game changer. The Western Queensland black soil just turns to thick, sticky mud after a good downpour, and travellers would often get stuck for weeks on end. So a fast, reliable passenger and mail service brought connection. And for people who'd lived with isolation for generations, aviation meant freedom. They remember the days when a Qantas plane flew in to help after an accident. This wasn't just transport, it was lifeblood, it was hope, it was vital. It all began back in 1919 when two Aussies returned from World War I, Hudson Fysh and Paul McGuinness. Brave, determined and totally passionate about flying. They served at Gallipoli and Palestine as light horsemen, then in the skies with the Australian Flying Corps. McGuinness, a pilot, Fysh, a gunner and observer. They saw plenty of action. They even landed in the desert to deliver secret messages to Lawrence of Arabia. When the war ended, they were just like thousands of other diggers, wondering, what now? Then came the Great Air Race, a challenge to fly from England to Australia in under 30 days, £10,000 in prize money. Fysh and McGuinness wanted in. They lined up a sponsor and brought in their old wartime flight sergeant, Arthur Baird. But at the last minute, the sponsor died and the money vanished. Still wanting to be involved, They worked for the Defence Department, mapping out a course through Northern Australia for the pilots in the Great Race. They modified a T-model Ford, grabbed a spanner and hit the trackless plains from Longreach to Darwin. No real roads, just open country, endless distance and thick red dust. And that's when the idea hit them. A land as vast as this needs an airline. So, over a few drinks in the post office hotel in Cloncurry, they dreamed up a plan. They had the skill, but what they didn't have was a plane. Enter Fergus McMaster, a wealthy local grazier and businessman. McGuinness had once helped him out, so they pitched him the idea over lunch at Brisbane's Gresham Hotel, and McMaster said yes. And he didn't just invest, he became the airline's biggest supporter. They called on Arthur Baird again, and he joined without hesitation. At the very first board meeting in Winton, they picked a name: Queensland and Northern Territory Aerial Services, or as we know it, Qantas. Due to a railhead being located at Longreach, it made sense that Qantas established itself here. They bought their first plane in Sydney, an Avro 504K. Then, as luck would have it, picked up a second one cheap from a businessman who decided flying wasn't for him after one bumpy flight. From there, it was all hands on deck. Fish went south, McGuinness headed north, drumming up passengers, charters and investors. Back then, flying was still a bit wild. People thought you had to be mad to go up in one of those things. But these guys, they were responsible, careful, and above all, safety conscious. One day, they even flew a keen punter to the races, and on behalf of a client, even dropped chocolates from the air to young ladies on remote stations. Qantas became the airline of the people and for the people. Then came their big break. They won a government contract to carry airmail between Charleville and Cloncurry. At the launch, Fergus McMaster stood up and said, "From this small company will come one of the world's great airlines."